دوستان عزیز فیسبوک من دکتر ناناز پیرنیا هستم و برنامه خودم رو امروز شروع میکنم، برنامه زندگی بهتر، و 2 نفر کازنم و زنش رو دعوت کردم که در نیویورک زندگی میکنن و راجع به مشکل خودشون و در واقع تجربه خودشون با ما صحبت کنن. منتظر هستم که رو ایر بریم با هم که دوستان رادیو هم بشنون منو، و خواهش میکنم به یکی از دوستان، امید اطلسی، خوشحالم با مایی، به من بگو اگر که صدا خوبه، برای اینکه من دیگه تو استودیو نیستم و نمیدونم که آیا صدای من خوب میاد یا نه و اکو نداشته باشه.
آماده اید خانم دکتر؟
مرسی فرشاد جان.
آماده داریم.
زندگی بهتر با دکتر ناناز پیرنیا.
بفرمایید.
شنوندگان عزیز زندگی بهتر، دکتر ناناز پیرنیا هستم و خوشحالم که بار دیگه در کنار شما هستم، به خصوص در این روزهای مشکلی که با هم واقعا اوضاعی رو تجربه می کنیم که برای همه ما عجیب، غریب و همه جوره روی مغز ما و سیستم اعصاب ما و در نتیجه جسم ما میتونه اثر بذاره. ولی همه با هم هستیم و هممون با هم اگر که به جای این که اجازه بدیم این استرس، این فشارها، این ترسهای از ندانستن آن که چه میشه و این ویروس چه کار میکنه، آیا من میگیرم یا نه، آیا بچه های من در خطر هستن یا نه، از لحاظ کار، از لحاظ بیزنس، یعنی همه گونه این اوضاعی که ما داریم تجربه بی نهایت شدیدیه برای سیستم مغز و اعصاب انسان. و ولی ما اگر که بتونیم و یاد بگیریم که استرس کنترل بکنیم، بی نهایت بیشتر به ما کمک میکنه که هم بتونیم عاقلانه در کنار فرزندانمون و فامیل زندگی رو بگذرونیم و کنترل بکنیم اون ترس و نگرانی هامونو، و همین که از لحاظ سیستم ایمنی بتونیم سیستم ایمنی دفاعی بهتری رو داشته، بهتر کار بکنه، ما کمتر در خطر گرفتن این ویروس کرونا هستیم. من در رابطه با سرویس های مرکز مایند تراپی سنتر با شما امروز صحبت خواهم کرد، برای اینکه ما در کنار روان درمانی و مغز درمانی به کار فانکشنال مدیسن و پیشگیری از گرفتاری های سیستم ایمنی کار میکنیم. یعنی امروز ما به جایی رسیدیم که در کنار روان درمانی میتونیم در واقع ایوالویت کنیم و متوجه بشیم که یک فردی چرا اینفلامیشن و تورم داره، چرا اوبیسه و وزنش مشکل داره، چرا از لحاظ دیابت مشکل داره، چرا فشار خونش بالاست، و تمام این مسائل دست به دست هم میده و ما رو میتونه گرفتار کنه. امروز اگر که دوست دارین با استودیو تماس بگیرین، برای اینکه برنامه بسیار جالب و مهمی برای همه دارم، استودیو هست 323 512 72 64 و بعد مرکز من مایند تراپی سنتر 310 286 1480. اگر اضطراب زیاد دارین، اگر پنیک اتک و اضطراب های هیجانی دارین، اگر خیلی ترسیدین و خیلی خودتون رو گم کردین و اگر سیستم ایمنی بالا ندارین، با مرکز من تماس بگیرین و من هم پیشنت ها رو آنلاین میبینم و هم برنامه ای رو برای بالا بردن سیستم ایمنی، یک اپی هستش که درست کردیم برای اینکه دقیقاً افراد بتونن متوجه بشن که پرابلم چیه. امروز در ضمن من قول دادم که به شما که کازن من جیسن و خانومش جنیفر، هر دو در نیویورک زندگی میکنن، 30 خورده سال دارن، بسیار سالم، و هر دوشون ویروس کرونا رو گرفتن و من مرتب با جیسن و جنیفر در تماس بودم که ببینیم حالشون چطوره و ازشون یاد بگیرم برای اینکه به شما کمک کنم. امروز ازشون دعوت کردم که چون حالشون بهتره و خدا رو شکر که خطر گذشته، با ما راجع به A to Z مسائلی که باش مواجه شدن صحبت کنن. منتها امروز به خاطر اینکه جیسن و جنیفر که اصلا ایرانی نیست، جیسن هم با اینی که خیلی فارسیش خوبه ولی ترجیح میده که انگلیسی صحبت کنیم. So I promised the English speaking listeners to also watch this program because I'm about to invite Jason and Jennifer to be connected to us and to explain to us their experience of catching this coronavirus and all the do's and don'ts that we need to know to safeguard ourselves. So to my non-Farsi speaking listeners, I'm inviting you to listen to this portion of the program, and I'm going to translate it to Farsi as much as I can, so we get a very good picture of how we can fight this disease and what are the best things to do if we catch this virus. So I think I have Jason and Jennifer online.
Hi, Nanas June.
Hi, Azizam. How are you, Jason John?
Doing well, thank you so much. How are you?
You sound much better, Jason.
Yeah, I'm doing much better. I feel good. I was actually just telling Jen, my wife, that my cough is still here. I have a little bit of tightness, and I was walking up and down the stairs just to try to get some breathing going on, and I was a little bit weak, but I think from what I understand, it takes a long time for lungs to heal themselves after going through something like that. So hopefully it's just a matter of time.
So Jason, I believe Jennifer had a much lighter symptoms of this virus. Is that true?
Yeah, she can tell you her experience. She woke up one day not feeling well, and that's how we kind of started down the path of getting tested, etc. Jen, you can...
Yeah, I mean, so Sunday the 15th of March, I started to feel not so great. We were trying to have a glass of wine just to relax, but I wasn't feeling myself, so I just said, you know what, I'm not going to have it. Monday I woke up with a fever, but it was very light fever. It was only like 100.7. Had really bad body aches. When I showered, I was trying to put like lotion on and do some self-care, and my skin was just very sensitive and achy, so I just slept as much as possible. And I had symptoms probably from that Monday through that Wednesday, and I didn't really face any of the chest tightness, but the aches were terrible. I had a pretty constant but low-grade fever, and I think sleep was really the number one for me.
So Jennifer, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be on my radio show. I think it really helps us because, as we know in psychology, the more we know and educate ourselves, the less we're scared. And I really appreciate this time. How are you feeling now, Jennifer?
I'm great. We actually got tested that Friday, the 20th, through a drive-through facility. We knew we had it at that point because of all the symptoms were so similar to what we had heard. I'm feeling good now. I actually have gone on a couple of runs, but it took me a while to get back to feeling like I could go on a run, and so I just did recently, and I'm feeling really good now. I didn't have the cough and the chest tightness that Jason had, though, so I think that's really what's holding him back from being 100%.
So, Jennifer, you had the high fever or no?
No, I had a low grade fever. It was like 100.7, but you could tell, like I could feel, maybe 100, 101. It was always low grade, but it's the same. You're sweating and then you're chilly and then you're sweating. So I knew I had a fever, but it never really hit anything super high. It was very low.
And did you lose your sense of taste and smell?
Yes, and we actually lost this fairly early on. I mean, we were also asking around of people that we knew had it just to compare things, and I lost my sense of taste and smell, but not right away. I think it was really that Monday I got it. Wednesday or Thursday I started to notice that I couldn't taste or smell anything, and we were reading articles, and they hadn't yet been speaking about that, so we were a little bit like, is this related? Is this not related? Come to find that, now we know it is. But yes, I lost it, and it actually only came back maybe about a couple days ago. So for a week and a half afterwards, I could not taste or smell.
Okay, Jen, before I ask you about your experience of getting help from maybe urgent care or getting tested, I wanted to know how Jason got this and what were the symptoms.
So we don't know how we got it. Everybody asks that question, and it's impossible to tell. The irony of the situation is I was early on the self-isolation train and wouldn't let anybody into the apartment, was washing my hands like crazy, disinfecting everything, not going to the office, probably a week or 2 weeks before people were saying to stay home. So no idea how we got it.
So Jason, you were careful. You were actually basically you were listening to everything that we're told to do, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's not, I think the reason I maybe got it was other people aren't necessarily as careful as you are, so, they're saying now it can be in the air, it can linger on surfaces, so who knows, where I could have come in contact with it.
Yeah, and then right after Jen, you started to show symptoms, right?
Yeah, the same day Jen we took her to the urgent care to see if they had tests, which they didn't. I had a tightening of my chest a little bit, which was a different experience from Jen. And while Jen had a light fever, I'd say from that Monday to Wednesday, my chest, almost like you have bronchitis, your chest gets very tight. You start coughing, but unlike something like that where you have an infection, the cough doesn't help at all. And for me, the odd thing is after that 48 hours or 72 hours of my chest being irritated, my chest actually went away. And I started to experience what she was experiencing, which was body aches and pains, and my skin was very sensitive, and I started, I still didn't have a fever at that point. So for the first week, I didn't have a fever, and for half of that week, I wasn't even coughing. And then I'd say about day 8 or so, I just all of a sudden felt terrible, lost my appetite, had 102, my fever slowly went up to 103, and then the following day that my chest started to get worse, and then for about 4 or 5 days I had the fever and the coughing and the not able to breathe and all of that. So that was the worst of it. Probably lasted about 4 or 5 days.
And Jason, did you know from the beginning that you have the virus? Did you self-diagnose yourself?
No. So day 5 was the day that we went through the drive-through testing facility. So we had to called the ER. ER said the first day when Jen was sick, we called the ER and said, we think we might have coronavirus. Do you do testing? I said, don't come here unless you can't breathe. Called my doctor. He said, don't come here. Call the ER. So it was this roundabout of nobody really able to help or test us. So we looked online, and there was a New York State Department of Health Corona hotline, which we called, and they actually take your information, and it took them a few days, but we called on a Monday, and on a Thursday they called us and said, you can come tomorrow to this drive-through testing facility. And we did that. Luckily, we have a car, so we were able to drive to Staten Island. And Jen actually felt good enough to drive, thank God. And she drove us both there, and we got the nasal swab, and that was on a Friday. And then on the following Monday, they called us and said, you both tested positive for coronavirus. You need to self-isolate. And we asked a bunch of questions at that point. Is there anything you can do? Should we go to the ER? And they said, just stay inside.
Jason, it must have been such a helpless feeling. I'm thinking psychologically, it takes a toll of you and Jen, being alone, having a dog. And, you had a car. Imagine people with no car, they would contaminate and they would put everyone at risk. And that's why probably New York is the epicenter of everything right now. That's scary.
Definitely, the two things there are, I think, if you don't have a car, you have the only other place you can get a test that I think things might have changed, but I think you have to go to the ER, and they will only test you if they plan on admitting you, so you have to be in really bad shape.
But
and going to the ER is...
Jason, it's really hard for us to know when I'm in a bad shape. You know what I mean? It's like if I have a hard time breathing, if I have fever, it's really, I'm so happy that you and Jen are okay, and I think we should learn firsthand from you what to do. So there is no point of going to the doctor or urgent, not, I don't know, shall I call it desperate or...
Yeah, I'm not equipped to give medical advice, but what my experience was that it was riskier to go to the ER if you're unsure of how, unless you really can't. They told us it's riskier to come here and expose yourself to everything that's here because we likely will not admit you unless you cannot breathe. And there's the ways that we kind of, I'd say to your previous question about the how scary it is and how to kind of monitor your own sanity was one of the things. I'm lucky that my sister-in-law is an ER nurse in New Jersey, and she said you should get your hands on what's called a pulse oximeter, which is a little device that clips onto your fingertip and gives you the blood oxygen level in real time. So that is how to determine whether or not you're getting enough oxygen, and it's like a $40 thing online. I'd say I would urge everybody to get one if they can because they're all back ordered, but if you get your hands on one now, even though you're not sick.
Jason, tell me the exact name of it online. It's blood.
It's a pulse, P-U-L-S-E,
pulse,
O-X-I-M-E-T-E-R. And this helped a lot because there were times when we wanted to go to the ER. I had 103-degree fever. I couldn't breathe very well. I was nonstop coughing. You can't sleep. Your head hurts because you're coughing so much. And you're in a really bad spot. And you really do think, hey, am I going to be the next one? Am I just going to be a statistic? Should I go to... Because you keep getting worse. So, but this pulse oximeter would tell me that the normal range is between like 95 to 100, right? Most people that are completely healthy are at 98.
Right.
If you drop below 93 or so, they say that's when you would need assistance with oxygen. So luckily my oxygen level never went below 93. No, even though I was having a hard time breathing and I was in really rough shape. It never went below 93, so we never went to the ER.
So you never went to the ER, you never went to get help with oxygen?
No, because of this pulse oximeter, that they were saying that if this goes below 93, you should go. But because I stayed at 93 and above, I didn't go. Even though you're sweating and your fever and all these other things,
right.
It's the oxygen level, I think, that is, the respiratory issues are it seems to be, the big problem with people and putting them in critical condition. But luckily, even though I couldn't breathe and it was very difficult, I was getting enough oxygen.
We also called our doctor pretty regularly just to check in We would read articles as they would come out as we started to learn more about this. And so I think taking vitamins, staying hydrated, sleeping, looking at the pulse oximeter, monitoring the fever, trying to sweat it out when possible, and only taking Tylenol when necessary. There were like steps that we could take before it came to that point, but it came close to that point.
And Jen, you had to go out. We have Jen and Jason. We're gonna go to a few statements that the radio has, and then we're gonna come back.
Okay.
It's a short break, but you're online with my Facebook people, so we're gonna continue. دوستان عزیز با ما باشین. Jason, you can hear me?
الو.
فرشاد من میتونم با جیسن و جن حرف بزنم رو فیسبوک؟ یا نمیشه؟
از طریق همین رادیو میخواد صحبت کنید؟
آره دیگه من فقط تو رو دارم.
اوکی، گوشی که من درستش کنم.
دست درد نکنه.
اوکی، یه لحظه گوشی ببرم.
اوکی my dear Facebook friend.
کوالیتی ولی یکم فیدبک میکنه. اوکی، خیلی خوب نمیشه چون خیلی پرفکت نیست، ولی حالا تست میکنم ببینم چجوری میشه.
اوکی عزیزم. Okay, Omijan, thank you. We're trying to make the sound be better and not have an echo. Peter Negai, welcome to the program. I have all my family members here. Omid, Roxy, Ardi, Goli. Okay. Jason?
Yes.
Jason, John, you and Jen. Jason?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. Why don't you continue telling us? I know I have an echo here. Vali, tell us the kind of vitamins that you were taking.
Yeah, so I think because there's no medicine, the doctor recommended vitamin C every day, vitamin D, zinc a few times a day. Zinc is really important for boosting immunity. No ibuprofen for the fever, Tylenol instead. Apparently ibuprofen makes things worse. A lot of water, a lot of liquids, and Pedialyte or Gatorade to kind of rehydrate. And if you can get your hands on it, I had albuterol because I have asthma, so that helps the breathing. And then whatever you can do, something my doctor stressed and something you mentioned is stress and worry causes additional inflammation that doesn't help. So anything you can do to relax your mind and not add to what your body's going through is really helpful.
And while you had this, did you have to walk your dog?
Unfortunately, yes, but fortunately, Jen was feeling very good early on, so she was handling all of that. And when we went outside, double mask, gloves, try to go early and late so we reduced interaction with anybody. But yes, the dog had to go out.
And how did you manage the food, and did you order out?
So as I'm sure you're aware, everybody panicked and bought a lot of food early on. So we bought a lot of non-perishable items. I made a big thing of Obgroup early, so we had a lot of food.
I know you're a good cook, my love.
Yeah, when I was healthy, I made enough stuff and froze it early.
I became the chef.
Jen, are you becoming a chef too?
Yeah, I took over the chef duties. I think I created a few new recipes, but I didn't want to show my skills too much because then I'm going to become a permanent chef.
I know. Don't do that. Don't learn too much.
But, you know, one of the things I wanted to say is people should take this thing seriously. I think it was definitely the scariest medical thing I've ever gone through, knock on wood, that that's the worst that I've ever had. But, you know, I think people are a little cavalier and they think it's just a flu. It's a lot worse than that. And no matter how young you are, you're susceptible to the lung issues. And I think, you know, people should try to take the proper precautions to really socially be distant and stay inside if you can. Just try to stop this thing.
And Jason, do you immune to this virus now?
I asked my doctor, and they said that typically with coronaviruses, like the flu and other things, you do have short-term immunity, they say. But because they haven't had enough ability to test, they're not sure how long the immunity lasts. So, you know, if you get it and you recover, you shouldn't walk around like you can't get it again.
So right now you're just trying to stay healthy, and you can't go out, or can you go out? They said it was 14 days from when you get your results. You can go. They said, you know, that's your quarantine period, but we're not going out. I mean, for fear of getting reinfected, or, you know, unnecessarily potentially infecting other people. We don't know if we're negative yet because we haven't ever gotten retested. So we're operating under the idea that, you know, we're as if we never had it, and we're trying to be as cautious as possible. And Jason, the line to be tested was long? Actually, you know, it's funny. I went at 9 a.m. and apparently there was nobody really there at 9 a.m. Wow. But at noon or 1 o'clock, they were turning people away. Apparently, same day. I'm not sure if that's still the case. So thank God you could be tested, huh? Yeah, and you know, it almost doesn't matter. I think if you get ill and have any of the symptoms, which are wide-ranging, right? I had loss of taste and smell, stomach issues, body aches, chills, fever, good cough. Any of those symptoms could potentially mean you have it, regardless of how mild your experience is. And I would say that the test serves for it helps you mentally to understand what you have, but I would urge anybody that has any of the symptoms to treat it as if they are positive, and to be very conservative with how they move around. Yes, it's a lot to learn from your experience and Jen's experience. And I'm waiting to go back on air so we don't repeat the same thing. Yeah. So what do you do at home, Jason? How do you guys entertain yourself? Well, Jen did a puzzle, but she's also working full time, thankfully. I've been getting back to, I'm a commercial real estate broker, so I have a bunch of clients that need a lot of help right now. So I've been trying to get back and help them and have those calls that I couldn't have a few weeks back. But other than that, you know, I think we're just cooking, reading, and all the things you would do. Watching Netflix. Yeah. You know, there's not too much to do, but luckily we have each other and we have the dog, and you know, you kind of get to appreciate the simple things in life for once. Absolutely. I think the experience out of this war is amazing for all of us. We learned so much to appreciate everything we have. Mm-hmm. You know? Absolutely. And appreciate health. Appreciate and appreciate help.
I would say I was one of the first ones to maybe not appreciate how healthy I was before, but now I think I've had an experience that has put that in the forefront of my lifestyle.
You know, I think this was... Oh, we're going back on air. Thank you, Farshad. We've got so many viewers from Facebook, دوستان فیسبوکی. Welcome to the show. We're going back on air.
2:52 end of the show.
Okay, are we online?
Okay. 30 seconds, 20 seconds.
20 seconds?
Yes.
Okay, give me a go hint.
Sure.
Okay. Jason and Jennifer, when we go back on air, I'm gonna have a few major questions, and then whatever you like to say as a do's and don'ts.
Ready?
Yes, let's go on.
بفرمایید.
شنوندگان برنامه زندگی بهتر، دکتر ناناز پیرنیا هستم. قسمت دوم برنامه رو تقدیم شما می کنم و امروز جیسن و جنیفر کازن من و خانوم کازن من رو از نیویورک رو خط داریم در رابطه با اینکه هر دو این ویروس کرونا رو گرفتن و الان دارن بهتر میشن خدا رو شکر و با ما صحبت میکنن برای اینکه ادویکیشن و آموزش و دانایی قدرت میاره و از ترس ما و نگرانی ما کم میکنه. برنامه رو باز به انگلیسی ادامه میدیم و وقتی بحثمون تموم بشه من نوت برداشتم که به فارسی هم یه ذره براتون توضیحش بدم. Jason and Jennifer, thank you again for being with us and sharing your experience with our listeners and Facebook audience. I wanted to ask you, we keep talking about the immune system, سیستم ایمنی, and we keep talking about if there is any predisposed condition that may hinder for us to get the virus. Did you two have any complications prior?
No, I mean I have asthma from allergies, but other than that, I'm not immunocompromised in any way, and neither is Jen. I think the one thing that we've seen, at least from doctors and people we've spoken to, is there's some correlation with gender and also blood type. So men seem to be getting it worse than women. And blood types, apparently type A, again, this isn't proven, it's just some correlation that they've seen, some trends. Type A blood seems to also get hit harder than others. I mean, I'm type A, Jen is type O, so our experience was very different and seemed to be in line with those data points that people shared with us.
Yeah. So we know right now from everyone's experience, and I have a lot of patients now that they do have the virus. It can be from very minor to really serious, and as we can see, God forbid, death. But I think it's really important to build the immune system, and at Mind Therapy Center, we have actually now an app, and we help everyone to build their immune system. And on Thursday, actually, I have a special show from 1 to 1:30, and I'm going to talk about the immune system and how to boost it. Now, you were telling me, please tell me one more time on everything that we think we should have at home as far as vitamins and instrumentations that it's necessary to keep at home, please.
Sure. So we had vitamin C, vitamin D, probiotic, fiber as well, because apparently probiotics do better when you're feeding your body fiber.
That's true.
Zinc, just the dissolvable zinc tablets, Gatorade, and Pedialyte, for a reason that, at least in my experience, I had very intense night sweats towards the end of the second week. I was soaking the bed every few times a night, and Jen unfortunately had to change the sheets multiple times a night. But you lose a lot of
liquid,
electrolytes
water,
and water that way. So you need to be able to hydrate yourself in a good way. What else did we have? We had Tylenol, not ibuprofen. So Tylenol if you want to manage the fever. And the most important thing, at least for keep monitoring your blood oxygen, was the little tool called the pulse oximeter, and just a regular thermometer to monitor fever.
And then thermometer. So other than that, the only thing that I can think of is, good sleep. And also for your immune system, we have a nucleoimmune, which is boosting the immune system. And also, do you think mask is something that we should wear? Are you wearing it?
I think so. Yeah, we're wearing it. Sorry.
I'm making you cough now.
Here, Jen can talk.
I think I'll finish this.
Yeah.
We're still wearing masks. We still wear gloves every time we go out, even though we could potentially be immune. Every time we walk the dog, we don't even socialize with anyone that we might even need the mask, but we wear it anyway because obviously you're touching surfaces, you're touching your face. So I think you wear a mask just as much to avoid breathing in other people's space as much as you do not touching your face after touching a handle. So yes, I think you should wear it.
So Jen, did you feel at one point that you're getting better, or you kept doing the same thing and hoping? There is such a unknown experience in here, and I can only imagine what you guys went through, and we were worried about you, and I'm so happy that you two are doing well. If you think there is any other advice of do's and don'ts, and also I wanted you to tell me that there was a hotline. When did you call the Corona hotline, right?
Yeah, so we called it on Monday when I first started having the symptoms, the 16th, and this was still fairly early on, but they took our intake patient information over the phone, our symptoms, etc., and they said they would call us back. And obviously we were like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get a call back, but they called us that Thursday, and we went in for an appointment on Friday. Now, they were just kind of creating the infrastructure around these systems, so when I called back on Friday, it was tougher to reach them, and it was getting a little bit crazier even then. But they seem to be trying to create more structure around this, obviously, to make it more accessible, but then they have points where they get inundated and they have to, pause it.
And just to be clear, that was a New York State Department of Health hotline. It wasn't a federal national hotline. So I think I'm not sure if every state has one set up, but I imagine California does. This was a state-specific program.
So if I feel that I'm not okay and I'm not breathing well, or I have fever, any signs, or I'm losing the sense of taste or smell, what is the first thing that you suggest we do? If you look back at your experience.
I would say call your doctor first for two reasons. One, they may be able to give you some sort of guidance based on your history, which I think is, only your doctor and you would know that. So definitely call your doctor, and then ask your doctor if they know where to get a test or which emergency rooms and hospitals in the area have tests. For instance, in New York City, only hospitals at the time, I don't know if it's still the case, Northwell Health Group, I guess, is the largest hospital, company in the or system in New York. They were the only ones 3 weeks ago that had tests. So if you went to a hospital, you had to go to one owned by them. So I would say call your medical provider first to determine,
what steps to take
how
next.
it plays into your medical history.
Uh-huh.
And I would also say just writing down how you feel each day, because there's so much happening right now. People think, it could be allergies, it could be muscle, it could be So if you document it with your doctor and you document it writing it down, you can see if you're changing, if you're feeling something different, so that you can really pay attention to how it's affecting you and if it's progressing, and how to take steps each step of the way to make sure that you're doing anything that is within your control to better yourself.
That's right. You know, psychologically, this is very contagious emotionally. And I know in my household, every day one of my family members, they announce that maybe they have a headache or they don't feel good.
Right.
And I think it's a very trying time emotionally for all of us. We're at war with a virus. And I'm so happy you guys are okay. When we had our break, Jason said something very important. I want you to repeat it. And that was when we were talking. I remember you said that people are not taking this serious enough, especially the younger generation. And you said this is not a flu. Please elaborate on that for us.
Yeah, I think just from having conversations with my friends and other people I know, I think people are thinking this is just a flu and that you're just going to be sick for a few days and you might have a fever and a slight cough and might not feel great, but it's clearly much more than that. And, I think young people specifically maybe have this idea that I'm young, I'm going to be fine.
Yes.
But that's not always true, and you should treat it as such, and not only for yourself, but for the sake of other people around you. It's just so that we can, it's going to take everybody to kind of flatten the curve, I guess is what they're saying. But I think that's important. But at the same time, it's also, like you said, illness, I think, and maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong, a lot of it is tied to how you think about things. So if you're constantly thinking you have coronavirus and you're sick, who knows if you make yourself more disposed to being sick. But when you are sick, I think it's also important to have the idea that you're going to be okay, and you got to mentally fight it as much as physically fight it. I think those things kind of play into one another. So you got to stay positive and do the things that you can do within your control, and not just sit around worried all the time. It's easier said than done, but I think that is something that Jen kept telling me the whole time. She kept saying, you can't keep thinking you're going to die from this thing. You have to tell yourself you're going to get over it.
Jason, was it a time that you thought you may die?
I was always I had a panic attack one night when my chest started to get really bad. I really panicked that it's just going to get worse and worse. I don't know if it's always in the back of your head, right? If you read the news, every article comes out as, another 30-year-old person with no pre-existing conditions died. So in your mind, you're thinking, maybe I'm getting worse. I have all the symptoms they talk about. I'm just not in the ER. So there was a point, and I actually, my doctor, I wasn't sleeping, so my doctor actually prescribed me some Xanax to calm me down, so that when in between coughing and even when I felt okay enough to fall asleep, I wasn't falling asleep because I was so panicked. So I think there is an aspect of, the fear plays into it until you start to feel yourself get better. Yeah, you definitely reach that point.
I know. The media is, as much as it's helpful, it can sometimes be overwhelming. So we need to keep the balance. But from my work with the brain, I know for sure that if you stay positive, and if you do breathing exercises, meditation, and we also have something we call brain tap. And as a gift to you and Jen, I'm going to send one to you. And this brain tapping is a combination of hypnotherapy, and it's a combination of light therapy and motion and music therapy. So I combined everything together to calm the brain and release the happier hormones and to fight the stress in our system. Another thing that we know and we need to be careful, and I'm here and I'm working online and I'm accepting patients, we work with them to boost the immune system. And also, if you really feel lonely or anxious, or if you have anxiety attack, just know that I can help patients to balance the brain not only with talk therapy and understanding why the person is overwhelmed, but we can also give the right nutrients. And instead of Xanax, Jason and Jennifer, I'm going to send you another gift. And we made a natural product called Tranquinol that works just like Xanax, but without any chemical that usually is in Xanax. So go with pure and go with healthy, good food, organic food, good sleep, hug each other, kiss each other, have sex with each other. Everything that releases this happy hormone and oxytocin is going to help you. Is there anything that I missed and you want to tell the listeners before we say goodbye to you?
I would just say that, I think recovery, the one thing we learned is it's not linear. It's not like you get A, then B, then C, then D, and then you're better. I think this thing jumps around. So, I think people that they might get the cough or they might not, and they might get the fever and they might not, but it's very different for everybody, and everybody should just be very aware of how they feel, and not be afraid to reach out to doctors or friends and things like that, to just let people keep a tab on you. I think one of the things that really helped me was all of my friends and family checking in on me and giving me the positivity and making me feel loved. I think that helps a lot, and if you know somebody that's ill and isn't feeling well, you should do the same for them. I think it goes a long way.
And I would just add that the media, you read all these stories to educate yourself so that you can understand how did other people experience it, how can you learn from their experiences. But the media is also sensationalizing, oh, wow, this XYZ thing happened. And I just think that there's context that you're not getting with some of these stories. So don't let it throw you into a panic, and definitely take time and pull yourself away from it and do things like you mentioned, like meditation, and rest your mind, because otherwise it can certainly consume you.
Absolutely. I know that I made you talk too much. Please rest, and we thank God that you two are healthy and now you can help others, and we're all here as humans to help each other in this trying time. So make sure your neighbors are okay. Make sure that if there is something you can do, either emotionally or financially, to be helpful to others. This is an extremely trying time that people respond differently, and it's quite traumatizing to the brain. This is definitely a traumatic brain injury, and we're all in it together. And on Thursday I have a special for half hour. I invite you to tune in. I don't remember if it's at 1 or 1:30, but I'm going to talk about boosting the immune system. Jason and Jennifer, I can't thank you enough to be my guest. And anytime, if you have anything else to add, you're always welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate all of your support during our recovery. And the one thing I just wanted to leave with that I didn't say is, we wanted to just say we're very appreciative of all the healthcare professionals and the people out there that might have extra masks or extra things. Everybody needs them. Please, do what you can to get these supplies to them. These are the people on the front lines that are risking themselves day in and day out to take care of us. Absolutely.
Well said, and stay safe, and we love you. Thank you for being the guest on my program. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
دوستان عزیزم، به پایان برنامه رسیدیم و من وقت نشد که اینو ترجمه کنم، ولی پنجشنبه راجبش مفصل حرف میزنیم و برنامه آیندم سه شنبه بعد هم همینطور. با من در تماس باشین. 310-286-1480 تلفنی من کمک میتونم به شما بکنم. اگر هر نوع ناراحتی از لحاظ احساسی، اضطراب، خواب و بعدم ایمیون سیستم رو به هر لحاظی، اگر وزن زیاده، اگر دیابت هست، اگر نمیتونین درست تنفس کنین، هر چیزی که هست ما میتونیم کمک بکنیم. به بچه هم خواهش بکنین و جوونا ویپینگ و مواد مخدر واقعا خطرناکه در این موقعیت و این ایمیون سیستم و ریه های ما اگر حالش خوب نباشه در معرض خطر قرار میگیریم. 310-286-1480 با من در تماس باشین. من تلفنی از طریق فیس تایم و آنلاین به همراه شما هستم، با شما هستم و هر کمکی که بتونم انجام بدم الان در خدمت همه هستم. مواظب خودتون باشین. روزای سختی رو میگذرونیم و تا برنامه بعد روز و روزگار شما خوش. مرسی. فرشاد جان ازت تشکر میکنم. مواظب خودت دوستان. مرسی عزیزم. دوستان عزیز مواظب خودتون باشین. برنامه رو شیر کنین با بقیه. بابا